All right. Well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on your time zone. Welcome to the Golden Path to SpringOne. My name is Nate Shute. I'm delighted to be joined today by Tatiana. Hi, Tatiana. How are you?
Hi, fine, thank you. Really nice to meet you and all our listeners.
A pleasure. And we've already got a hello from Bulgaria, so we're all over the places. One of the things I have to admit I do find really fascinating about this sort of streaming world that we've all been thrown into since the pandemic here started up. It's given us an opportunity to go a lot of places we wouldn't normally go, interact with people we probably would not have normally interacted with. So I am delighted that we're getting some reach. So that's fantastic. Well, Tatiana, delighted to have you here today. I don't have a whole lot to say other than I'm ready to kick it off to you if you're ready to rock and roll. Are you good to go?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Awesome. Let me bring in your screen share and I'll let you have it. So have at it, Tatiana. Cheers.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tatiana, and today I would like to talk with you about how to swim in an issue flow. And actually, we have talk about the issue management, and I'll try to cover some kind of topics there. So, but if you have any questions, we will have a Q&A session in the end. So don't hesitate to write them to the chat during the session, and we will return to them in the end. But I think that we can start right now. And firstly, a couple words about me. So I'm a CEO of DBeaver, and DBeaver is the company that produces database management and visualization tools. Right now we have about 8 products, and 2 of them are open source. DBeaver was born more than 10 years ago, and it was born as an open source project. And it means that mostly for like all of this year, we have already got more than 8 million of users, and we have users around the world. And a couple of years ago, actually 2.5, we started a new project. It's like a little brother of DBeaver, and it is a CloudBeaver application. It's also open source. And now, why it's important? Because the problem with issues and this issue management can be very different for the mature products and for the newborns. So because of that, I can say that yes, we have this kind of experience, and we are ready to share that. And actually, the talk itself was I got the idea about this talk almost 4 years ago when I was in Germany on the EclipseCon in 2019, and I heard a very interesting talk from Zach Grind about burnout. And it was about burnout, not for in general, but for open source creators and maintainers who spent a lot of time with their maybe pet projects, but sometimes it's not even pet, it's a main project, it's a goal of their life. And it was 2 charts in that presentation with some statistics. I took them from the Zach's deck just to show you that actually, almost 85% associated of open source contributors and maintainers associate themselves with their project, and it's actually the part of their life, and they really, really cared about what they do. And the other thing that is also very important, that actually more than half of them are ready to delay all other tasks and to spend more time with the project and with their contributors and with their community than with the family or friends. And a good illustration of that, I heard just recently. I was in a conference, Open Source 101, and And I listened to the very interesting talk where the presenter said that, hey, I want to share with you some how I came to the open source world. And the story was interesting because he told us that he at some day he developed their own project, and he took the open source library, and for some reason it didn't work. So he decided that he couldn't solve the issue by himself, and he wrote found the email of the maintainer and wrote the message with the question, and got the response actually immediately. And it was really great experience for him, and he was really excited about how open source works. The only issue here that quite quickly in this conversation with the maintainer, he realized that at this particular moment, maintainer was on the K-pop concert. So instead of listening to music, I don't know, talking with friends and maybe relaxing, the maintainer solved the questions of some guy from the other part of the world who asked the question about the project. And it sounds very nice, and it sounds very helpful, and actually even impressive. But the issue here that when we manage the tickets from the open source project in this way, very quickly we can feel ourselves like this. I mean that our community and our contributors are not our friends anymore, and we're just trying to answer the tickets as soon as possible and close them as soon as possible, because otherwise we feel a very big pressure and we don't understand what to do with that. And it means that if we will try to manage the issues and tickets more efficiently, we can try to avoid such kind of feeling. So I don't want to touch the psychological side of this question in this presentation. You definitely can watch the video or about the burnout for open source contributors. But today we will talk about the ticket itself. It's very, very practical. And the first thing that we need to look at is where do new issues appear from? Because maybe we can, if we understand the root cause of the problem, we can solve it better. So, and imagine that you created a new, brand new project that is really nice. So, and actually you have already published it on some open source platform. It can be GitHub, it can be GitLab, it can be any other. It doesn't matter actually. The main idea here that at this particular moment you already have a backlog of your tickets. You already have some ideas for future development. And actually your backlog consists of your own ideas only. And this is great. But if your product is good enough, very quickly you start to receive new kind of issues. And these new issues are really questions. Because, you know, when people start to integrate your product to their infrastructure or start to use it, the first thing that appears is the question, how I can do this? Sometimes because open source projects very often have a lack of documentation, especially on the beginning. At the beginning, it can be really hard to understand. So the first issues that appear is the questions. But if the product is popular enough, very quickly, you will receive bug reports. And it's also very, very normal because it's impossible to test your library or your application against of everything, against of any infrastructure, and test it on any platform. So It means that now you have a very first contribution from the community. You get the first feedback, and you can improve the product according to this feedback. And the next very magical moment is when you get a first feature request. Why it's magical? Because now in your backlog you have not only your ideas, and you have not only explanation about how actually the application work, but also you can share the ideas from your community. It's like a new collaborative stage of the product development. And it's great until you receive the first feature request that you actually don't want to do. And it's quite common situation. And again, it's not something bad with that, because it doesn't mean that you don't want to do this issue at all. It can be because right now you see your product development in another direction. Some time ago, I had a very interesting talk with the creator of Nginx platform, and he told me that in the beginning, when he just developed it and started to think for which reasons people can use this platform, he always thought about like high load system. And it was quite surprising that actually in the very beginning, when the product became available for the people, and most of users use it just for their small, tiny websites with any issues with performance or with high load, just because it was convenient. And does it mean that he had to stop to develop product for that kind of people? Or maybe it was a good sign to change the product development way. It's only you can decide these kind of questions. And the main idea here that sometimes you cannot even decide, are you going to implement this kind of feature or not? And it means that this feature request will live in your backlog for some time. Sometimes it can be a very long time. It can be months or years before you close it or before you implement it. And when you develop your product further, in most cases, your picture can change and look like that. So you have different sectors on this donut chart, and it can be different distribution. But most likely, you have very different types of issues in your backlog. And especially when the product is young, you can cover all of them. You can answer all questions. You can develop all new features, your own, and features from community. You can close all bugs, and everything is fine. But this strange feeling that when the number of tickets grows, you just feel that something goes not wrong, but differently. And you still believe that everything is fine and that you are able to manage all of that. And you can close all these issues, and at that moment you can find yourself in the situation that you are just stuck. What I mean, you have too many issues, you have too many parallel conversations with your community and with the ticket creators. You don't even understand what is your focus on and what you want to do next. And it's really, really frustrating. And sometimes you can think that, okay, I can just solve this issue in extensive way. I can attract more people to my team, maybe employ them, or maybe I can build the community or like work better with contributors. And of course it works, but if you do nothing with your tickets on your board, most likely you will come across the same issue again and again. because as we all know from the classical book about mythical management, we cannot extend the team forever for any number of users. At some moment it became like just not efficient anymore. So, and all of this is just about that, okay, it's when you found yourself in this situation, and it's not a reason for panic, it's not a reason to get rid of your project, it's a reason to start to start to investigate it. And firstly, you need to understand how bad is the situation, and exactly how many open tickets do you have. And because when you have a bad feeling, it's really helpful to convert your feelings to numbers. And I'm personally not a fan of to spend a lot of time on analysis and to counting very complicated KPIs and all other things, because when you make a deep analysis, you don't work with your community, you don't close the tickets, you don't develop the product, and you just spend time with analysis. It's great if you have a separate situation, but it's great when you have someone who can manage that. But if you're just alone, or if you have a limited resources, most likely you cannot spend so much time for that. And because of that, I suggest you to count just actually two group of numbers. And one of them is number of tickets that you close during the iteration, and another one is number of tickets that your users and your community create during the iteration. The main question here is just what is the iteration? And the answer here is quite simple, because if you work with some kind of methodology like Scrum, for example, you already have the iteration. It can be 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, any. But actually, if you don't have such kind of things, and if you don't have like release cycle or something, it's not an issue at all. The main idea of this exercise is to collect and analyze some kind of historical statistic for your project. And for that, you can choose any iteration size that you like and use it. So the main rule, it has to be small enough to give you some amount of numbers, and it have to be big enough to not make you crazy about counting all of these numbers. So I did this exercise for you, and I did it on our small community project. It's CloudBeaver, and it's right now CloudBeaver is 2.5 years old. So I collected the statistic for the last 2 years and created this beautiful chart. So, and what exactly can we say from this chart? Nothing. Because personally, I cannot say anything about that. It looks like a mess. And to simplify it a bit, I added the very important thing, and it is trends. So with trends, it's become much more clear what's going on with the project. And you can see that in the beginning, when we just like after the half a year of publishing on the open source platform, everything was absolutely fine. I mean that we closed the same number of tickets as users created, and we was able to manage everything. But then more popular product became, then faster the trend grew. I mean that both trends on this chart are positive, but we can see that tickets appear faster than we can close them. And in this case, it means that, okay, maybe we need to draw more attention to the new tickets. Maybe we need to implement some practices to review them faster and to close them faster or to work with them better. So our focus on the new tickets in this case. Another situation, if you have a mature open source product, I did the same exercise for the same period for our DBeaver product. And you can see that the trends here are negative. And the first thing that you can have in your mind is that the community activity is decreasing. But I know that it's not true, because I can see the numbers for number of downloads of the application, and I can definitely say that the number of users grows more than 2 times for the last 2 years. And in this case, what do mean this negative trend for created tickets? And the answer can be quite simple, that right now on the Beaver board, we have 1,700 of opened tickets. It's really, really huge. And most likely new users, when they come to the board, they can find their problem because it's already documented, it's already exists. And they just leave the comment or vote for the ticket or do something else. And in this case, we can think mostly not about how to process new tickets, because we see that trends are parallel. Most likely we work with new tickets quite well. But we also need to draw attention on review of the existing ones, maybe to requalify them, maybe to conglomerate them to some groups, maybe to analyze better according to the position in the backlog or something like that. And it means that the situation with the second project is absolutely different than with the first one. And it's why I really insist to make this exercise with your project, to count this couple of numbers and create the charts, because after that you will be exactly know what's going on and how you can help yourself with that. So when we know better our product, we can talk about what can we do with that, what tools and practices we can use to improve the situations with the big flow of the issues, how we can manage them better. And the first actually tool that I have is quite obvious, but it's really, really important. And what is even more important, than sometimes when I look through the list of different open source projects, I see that people don't use the simple thing. I mean that issue processing templates and issue categorization. Why is it? Why do you need this? It's actually, if you imagine that someone creates a ticket on your board just from scratch without any template, just press the new issue button and put the text with some comments there. What does it mean? It means that when you start to review the ticket, you will need to understand what's going on, and most likely you will need additional details from the user. You will need to go back to the user and send the comment and ask the questions. And you need to spend some time for that. And after that, your responder also will need to review your question, check what's going on, how they can help you with that, and send you the answer. Sometimes it can be not enough. So you can play the ping pong games for quite a long time, and you can spend even more time for trying to investigate the issue than for real development or answering the question. And actually, the types of tickets and tickets templates really help with that. And the only thing that I want to give you as an advice, that please don't create too many types of issues. I mean that if you have feature request, enhancement, improvement, most likely your users won't understand anything with that. So try to keep it as simple as possible. And the same story with the template for your tickets. I mean that don't put too many fields there, because it's hard to fill a very long form, and some people just won't do this at all, and you will get less feedback. And if it will be just too small number of fields, you just don't receive won't receive the information that you need, and you will need to ask the questions again. So don't try to do this. Make a few iterations, add some fields, remove some fields, and after some time you will find not maybe perfect template, but good enough to close the issues faster. And you can take some template from other project as an example, but it's not necessary, because I saw very, very different templates. They are always very connected with the project, and different development teams ask for different things. So you need to prepare your own. The next thing is about discipline. It's the word that not all people like, but if we're in an issue flow, it definitely makes sense to add and to book some time in your scheduler for ticket review. And even if you have a small number of tickets, like a small flow, it definitely makes sense to do this every day instead of doing it once a week. Because even you don't have anything new on your board, you can just keep this time for other activity. But if you have something, you will be able to respond immediately, and your users and will get a great user experience. And that is more important, they still be in a context. So they just created a ticket. They remember about this situation. They can explain it better than after a week when you send them a question. So if you can answer the question faster, do this. It's really good for everyone in this situation. And of course, when you put this time for ticket review to your scheduler, it's good for you, but you cannot expect the same from the users. So don't be annoyed that some people don't answer your questions for days, weeks, or actually never. It's normal. And here I want to just shortly talk about first in, first out and last in, first out concept. I took these pictures from the programming website, and it means that it's very common for the programming area, but you also can meet these terms in, I don't know, financial sector as well. And here we can also apply them for our work with tickets. And where is idea? So when you have a small number of tickets in the backlog, in this small that you can observe and answer them during a couple of days, it's nice to just look through each of them one by one and answer. So first in, first out model works very well. But if you have a big backlog, if you have tens or hundreds of tickets in a backlog, so you will close them for a long time, a few months maybe, maybe even a year. In this case, it definitely makes sense to take the latest tickets first. As an example, I can tell you that one day, some time ago, we closed the ticket that was almost like 1 year old, and we wrote the comment that, hey, could you please check our fix? And we got a response that, hey guys, I'm sorry, but I'm not a DBA anymore. I don't even work for IT industry anymore, and so I couldn't check it and close it. And it's very common. The world never stopped, and it's just better to help people who need your help right now than trying to solve issues that were created a year ago. And one more thing here is also that I want to share with you, like a hint. In our team, we have a very great 10 minutes rule. And it means that if you see the issue that you can solve in 10 minutes, just do this. Don't like get an approval for that. Don't I don't know, trying to put it to plan it for future and so on. If you already spent some time to understand what's going on and you know how to fix it, just do this and bring this great user experience to the community. So I highly recommend this approach. And the next story that I want to highlight is about labels. And the labels are very, very helpful when you just need to add internal tickets structuring. And even if you have, I don't know, 10 tickets, it definitely makes sense to add labels. Even if you don't need them right now, they really save your life in future. And I recommend you to add labels not only for the part of the application, but for the part of your workflow. For example, wait for review ticket that we have, all new tickets get this label as soon as they were created by users. And it means that when we open our GitHub board, we can see all new tickets and we can respond them quickly. And actually, the only thing that I need to notice here that please don't make labels for everything. Especially when we are talking about the parts of the library or of the application. If you have two general labels, or if you have a label for each tiny function in your backlog, in your product, it means that you don't have labels at all. So the main idea of labels is grouping, because when you can group them, you can work with them. You can apply some kind of workflow to them. For example, you can make iterations with one theme. If you see that this part of the application is the most popular among of all your users. But also, if you have labels for the part of your workflow, you also can add some rules for processing such kind of issues. And it's very nice to document these rules, because the next time when you decide to review the backlog and to return to this kind of tickets, it will be easier to remember what you usually do in this situation. It can be simple for duplicates, for example, because if I see the duplicate, I just close it and add the comment that it's a duplicate of this kind of task. But if it's, for example, cannot reproduce, the workflow can be a bit different and a bit more complicated. Like, do we need to wait for a couple of weeks before we close the ticket if we don't have a response from the community? And it's really nice to have it documented, because it will help you and it will help new team members who also will need to do this stuff. They just open the document and follow the rules. Really time efficient. So, yes. And when we have a group of our tickets, now we need to prioritize them. And because if you have like 20 tickets and you can close only 5 in an iteration, how can you choose what exactly you want to write, you want to fix? And there are different kind of priority matrices, but this one I like more. And it includes 2 questions. One of them is about how important the task, and another one is how many people need it. And if we're talking about importance, I believe that it's something from maintainer and from the product creator, because only you really understand how you want to develop the product. Only you decide, would you like to listen to community, or would you like to consider their opinion and do something else? And because of that, this access is actually yours. You decide what will be here. But at the same time, we have the question about how many people need it. And it can really, with this access, it's quite easy to understand why, for example, security issues and vulnerability issues have the highest priority. Because a lot of people are affected by that, and at the same time, security is always the top one priority for each software creator. And actually, with this thing, you also can mark some of your issues that only one person needs, or that can be come across in very rare situation. The box don't do, at least until someone else asks about that again and again. And it's really helpful when you need to review the backlog. You can mark the tickets that you want to do and the tickets that you don't really want. So now, when you have all of this, we can talk about quite questionable thing, and it's in estimations. Actually, I can say that it's very difficult topic for many people, especially for the very talented developers, because sometimes they want to believe that their estimations are right just because they really want to develop some feature. But at the same time, estimations are very powerful tool for working with tickets. And even raw estimations work very well. I believe that everyone has experience with them and actually use it quite successfully. I mean that you can understand what feature is big and what feature is small. And if you have just like a couple of days until the end of the iteration, most likely you won't take the big feature and you will take a couple of small ones. And actually, it's when you take the estimation and when you use it, even in this simple shape. And because of that, I really don't want to push you some particular system for the estimation. You can choose anyone. You can choose story points from the Scrum. You can choose T-shorts. You can choose even big or small. You can invent your own estimation system. If it will work, it doesn't matter, actually, absolutely. Just take it and use it. And only remember that when you estimate your ticket, it's not only about the development. For example, if you're trying to solve the bug from that was reported on your board by some foreigner, and for example, you are from United States and this bug was created by Chinese person, it can be quite hard to understand what's going on sometimes, just because you have this language barrier, and that you will try to explain how you understand the problem, and this guy will try to explain you what he meant, and it means that it takes some time. So put this time to your estimations as well, together with other issues, with testing, with infrastructure development, with I don't know, collaboration with other maybe team or community members, and don't try to cheat yourself. Even if you like this feature very much and you want to implement it, just be honest with you. If you see the great feature and you understand that it will take, I don't know, a month of development, you have to evaluate it honestly. You have to just check that, okay, am I ready to like spend the whole month with that, or I want to close other issues that I have on my board. And when you have all of these tools in place, so you work with them well, it means that you can go to the planning. You are ready to go to the planning. And I don't recommend you to do this earlier, because in this case, it will be really hard to plan anything, and it can be not really good planning stuff. You will be always like late or too early with your planned tickets. So you review all your issues, and you know what is actual and what like duplicator can be closed. You put the labels on the tickets, and now you can create the theme of iteration or something like that. You know what is important and what is not, and what features you have to do first, and what themes are more interesting for you and for your community. And moreover, you understand how much time you can spend with these issues. So it's a very good position for at least for the short-term planning, and maybe even with the middle-term planning. But I personally don't recommend to try to plan anything like in years ahead, like 5 years planning. Not because it doesn't make any sense or because you cannot do this, but because the strongest side of any open source project is that you always have the feedback from the community. And sometimes you think that your feature is so great, and you will develop it in like all further iterations, but suddenly no one is interested in it, and you have no feedback about that. And at the same time, some tiny improvement or experimental functionality can have a great success. And it means that you don't need to be stuck with the first plan. You can move to another one. You can be open for the new technologies. And you can do this because you have this immediate response from the community. So use it. Don't avoid this. And because of that, when we are talking about the long-term planning, especially for the open source project, it's mostly about strategical view than about the particular issues that you're going to take. A couple more advices for advanced users. And it's when you have too many when you have too many tickets, when you have too many issues, that even like labels and priorities don't help you to manage them. It means that you can try to find additional numbers, additional parameters, so that will help you with that. And in our case, for example, with DBeaver, we when we have too many tickets, we just import them to the database. DBeaver is a database management tool. It's easy for us to work with the databases. So we can move further from GitHub filters and go to the database SQL language and create more advanced level filtering to plan our activity. I believe that you don't need it if you have just even couple of hundreds of opened tickets on your board, because most likely all other tools, the set of all other tools will be enough. But you can consider this option as well, because in the database you can, count the likes for the issues or number of comments, reactions, or anything like that. And another thing that I also put in the end of our conversation is about workflows. So, and the main idea of this slide, that actually in the beginning of the project, you can use any workflow that work in your situation. Even if it's simple to do in progress done, it has to work well. And if you are in a bad situation with the ticket flow, I don't recommend to start from workflow bottlenecks. You have a lot of other stuff to do. You have a lot of other tools to work with for tickets management. But if you have already implemented all of this and still there are some issues, you can try to analyze workflow. The main issue here that it's really, really time consuming. I mean that you need to track all changes. You need to track everything that you have on each stage of your workflow. And if you have a complicated workflow from like 10 stages, you need to evaluate each of them and count, like track the numbers and time that you spent and like number of tickets and so on. And it's a very big and hard work. So don't start this work too early. In most cases, the root cause of your issues with tickets is not in a workflow, it's somewhere else. So in the end, the sad truth about the almost any big open source project, you have no chance to close all issues. And it can be a bit frustrating for creators and maintainers that, it's like, I close the issue, I finish the job. And if you have hundreds of them on your board, it can be a bit sad. And actually, it's a reason of burnout when you're trying to win in this race and close everything that you have, even if you don't want to close them. But the good news here is that you don't have to close all of them, because we are here not for closing the tickets. We are here for deliver the great products. We are here to deliver something that really useful for our users. And we want to create something great that other people can use every day, that will help. And only you can decide what tickets you want to close and what not are really important, because it's like a way, it's a journey. You know in which direction you are going. So don't be concentrated about the number of tickets too much. Don't be concentrated on the great product that you do. So, and thank you very much. And you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
All right. Well, I got to tell you that thing you started with at the beginning, I actually went ahead and Googled that. Happy dreams are about, or when happy dreams are about dying. That little depressing. But what it reminded me of is the puppy you buy that's all cute and cuddly and then grows into a big dog. And, you got to like realize what's the long-term piece of this, and also trying to be in a place where this is sustainable, and I think the idea of burnout has become very real. I think it's something that we're talking more about, which I think is good. So I think that was a very meaningful thing to talk about. And so any questions from the audience? I see we've got some folks from Bulgaria, France, India. Simon's here. Hi, Simon. Good to see you. Et cetera, et cetera. And clearly there's some comments about being very relatable. So that's always positive. Any other thoughts, comments, theories, queries from the audience?
Actually, guys, if you don't have something in your mind right now, please feel free to send your questions to me. So you can see my email on the screen. So I always open for new connections and interesting conversations about that. And it's not necessary to ask it right now, but we can wait for a couple more minutes if someone will be brave enough to ask the question. Or maybe my presentation was so great that everything is 100% clear and no questions. I also will be happy about that.
Oh, here we go. Oh, this is a good question here. What are some good approaches to managing end user expectations in open source projects? And I would also say, by the way, that goes for projects. I mean, that was one of the things I was going to comment on here before Jack's question came in. This idea of sustainability, applies beyond just the open source community. I mean, this is the same on our projects. You know, how do we make sure our teams understand what is sustainable, what's a pace that we can actually maintain? You know, I mean, we all realize crunch time is going to happen periodically, but it can't be that forced death march, you know, day in, day out. You know, and how do we reasonably set those expectations of what we can accomplish in a reasonable amount of time, and also making sure that if we're at a concert, we're not responding to questions. I mean, be in the moment for like an hour. So anyway, thoughts on Jack's question?
Actually, about the good approaches to managing end user expectation. It's great when you have your own understanding about what you really do, what is your project about. So, and it makes everything much easier because you don't have these doubts about what I need to answer and how I need to talk when, for example, I get a request for feature that I don't want to implement at all. If it's very common case when people ask about some roadmap, like when I can wait for this kind of feature, and I can say that again, it would be much from my side, from my perspective. I believe that it's better to be honest, but quite careful with any kind of estimations and any kind of promising, because first of all, sometimes you cannot estimate especially complicated features. You cannot estimate them correctly from a few words. In most cases, you need some kind of time for investigation. And another thing that's important here, and that's connected with which I said about long-term planning, that you hear the community questions and some requests, but at the same time you have your own internal feeling how you want to develop the product. And actually the ChatGPT is a very good example here, because we had some kind of plan and what we are going to do and what features we want to integrate in the product. But with all of this hype around ChatGPT, during the winter, we just decided, hey, it's a good feature. Why we won't try to integrate it to DBeaver? And we did it, and we got very positive feedback from the community. But it means that someone who expected to get the feature about something else, this guy didn't get this, because
right.
It's impossible to get everything, like to develop everything that people want. So if you want to manage the end user expectations, be honest and be quite careful about what you are promising. And of course, it's nice if you can translate some kind of vision for your product.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I think it's long been a challenge in software, is sort of getting folks to understand that just because you can't see it doesn't mean that it's like super easy and it's just a matter of me typing a few characters and it's all just there. You know, there's a lot more to it, but it seems to be a perennial problem in software. Maybe another 100 years we'll nail that one. But that's a good question. All right. Well, I don't see anything else in here. A couple of comments that I am obligated to make. First and foremost, I do want to remind folks that we do have Spring Academy. So if you are looking for more information on Spring, you want to get some education, you want to get certified, all that kind of fun stuff, you can check out Spring Academy. And I also have to tell you, we've got VMware Explorer coming up in Vegas in August. It should be an excellent time. We're going to have a whole SpringOne track there as well. So hope to see you out there in Vegas in August. Anything else, Tatiana, you want to say before we call it a day?
Maybe only thank you. Because I'm really great. I'm really impressed that people from France, from India, I cannot even imagine what time it's in India right now. So yeah. They're here and listen to this talk. Thank you very much. I'm really glad to see all of you here. And thank you, Nate. It was really nice to work with you today.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much for your time, Tatiana. Thanks to all of you for joining us at what I know are some very odd times. So I appreciate you staying up late, getting up early, so to speak, whichever direction you want to go. So thank you all very much. And we'll be back. Actually, I get to come back on Thursday. I'm doing this all over again. So we got another one of these coming up, and we'll see you then. If not, we'll see you in VMworld Explorer, et cetera, et cetera. Let me go find my magic thing. But until then, Tatiana, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.